Da da dun. Da 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 dun.
Yes, it's happening.
We're doing it.
It's the last week of life.
It is. Of a week of life.
Yes, week of life.
We'll come back. We'll be
We
back.
will, it's true.
There'll be plenty more live events.
Hello, Melissa. Kaylee-Ann Lewis.
Kellyanne.
Brandon Power, seeing that name day after day.
I know,
Thanks,
and
Matt.
Melissa. Good afternoon,
Emily
Melissa.
Juster. Emily, I'm glad you're here today.
Oh, yes, Emily. We have something special we need to show you.
Friends gathering today.
James Modling. We are drawn. We're drawn to fantasy.
Dorothy, my question is, will you hyphenate your name yet again when, after the wedding?
Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun.
Dun, dun.
52? I think we're at 52.
Was today? It was yesterday 52 or today?
I've messed up the numbers before, but I do know today is May 26th. Ooh, and it's about to get cool.
It's about to get real cool up in here.
It's not Saturday, because if it
It's
was,
loungy.
or Sunday, then it would be Sketchbook Sunday or Sketchbook Saturday here at the DiTerlizzi studio with cool coffee house music.
No, I changed that.
But now
It
it's
was too smooth.
it's Sketchbook
I wouldn't want to lull
Tuesday.
everyone to sleep.
It's Sketchbook Tuesday. Ange took a quick, I mentioned this yesterday, whether we should keep painting or maybe take a quick break and tour some old sketchbooks. Ange took a quick poll over at the Fans of Fantasy group.
Right.
And we got quite a few people who voted for flipping through some old sketchbooks, which I'm happy to do. And then we'll resume painting tomorrow. While I get my sketchbook out, Ange, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty awesome.
You look good. You look refreshed.
I do?
You do. Well, you took a shower.
I am.
I
I'm
just got-
clean for you guys.
She washed up. I just got back from the post office.
Washed all the bits and bobs. We're ready.
Yes, Bips and Bobs. So, Joyce Emons, your package is on its way to the Netherlands, amongst other packages and things that had to go out. So, the way this is going to work is I've grabbed a few sketchbooks. Now, I have dozens of these old sketchbooks. Many are filled with life drawings. This one, in particular, has a lot of old Magic the Gathering. I gave it a quick flip before we started, and then I've grabbed a couple others that are pretty neat milestones in my career that I thought this happens when we get artists that visit, whether they're fellow professional artists or young aspiring artists, when they see that shelf with all the sketchbooks. I have like the one shelf filled with sketchbooks, and they started out nice sketchbooks like this, Ange, and as you well know, they're like little moleskins now.
Well, Travis said he's not getting audio. Is anybody else? Can't hear anything.
Oh, wow. Gee, I hope it's working. Let's see if my audio...
Yay! Jason said
Is it working?
audio.
You are hearing us?
Are you hearing us now? Let us know. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Can you hear us?
Can you? Hello, hello. Is there anybody out there?
I turned the silent mode off my phone. Susie Hammond says she can hear us. All right, so it's probably someone just doesn't have their audio. Thank you, and Grimble Grinder, thank you as well. And, of course, Dean Baxendale. We couldn't even start the show without you, Dean. Okay,
I mean,
so
really.
it's good. All right,
This
so
should just be called Drawn to Dean Baxendale.
Well, Eric Burkert and Molly Porridge
Drawn
and
to
Emily C.
Burkert.
Martin, among others, would have something to say about that.
Of course.
So anyway, I'm happy to share these sketchbooks with you. I figured this is what we'll do, Ange. I'll kind of page through if something strikes me, and I'll talk about it a little bit. But if questions pop up, if someone's got a question while they're seeing, like, "Hey, can you tell me about that thing?"
Questions.
Then we'll try to do it. Do you want a chair? Do you want to sit?
Aww.
I'm gonna stand.
Thank you.
I'm kind of.
Ooh, this thing is up really high. It's like
Well, I
an
try.
elevated.
So this one, I labeled them later. This is from 1996, 1997. I do have ones that go a little further back than that. However, this one This one, like I said, has a lot of fantasy and some other fun surprises in it, things I can kind of talk about. So here we go. It starts actually on October of 1996. These are sketches for Peter Beagle's...
1996.
1996, yeah.
So that is 24 years old.
Yeah. I have a 1995 one. We could have gone like a clean...
And you were 26 years old.
Here, I would have just turned 27 because my birthday's in September.
You're right.
So 27 years old.
Of course you're right. You know when your birthday is.
Living in New York City. And Peter Beagle, most famously known for his book, The Last Unicorn, which I'm sure many of our listeners probably are quite aware of, had done a new anthology of short stories, one of which was in the same world of The Last Unicorn, and I don't remember what story it was. The anthology was called Giant Bones, and I was tasked with doing the cover and some little interior drawings. So here's some of the work for that, even some hand lettering. This was one of the short stories.
Can you zoom in a little bit more?
I can zoom in if you guys... Do you guys like that better? Now, I may have to move the sketchbook around. These are drawn pretty much with the same pen I use now. Ange, that's you. That would have been drawn from life. That is at... Do you remember? Is that Grand Canyon? I think that's at Grand Canyon. No, you have chopsticks.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's chopsticks involved.
It says at a restaurant. I'm glad I really went into a lot of detail.
Me and Ange
at restaurant. I'm guessing it could be Lemongrass Grill. That's probably what it is.
Yes,
I bet it's lemongrass.
Yeah, I think
it looks
they
very
actually
lemongrass.
Had those
real tall
glasses.
There's a drawing of Prospect Park, drawn from life. I was doing a lot of life drawing then because I was busy, but not as busy as I am now, and also we didn't have a kid. So I had that kind of time to go and draw trees.
Just FYI, Jason Alona was 5.
Good to know.
When you did that drawing.
The initial sketch for the cover of Giant Bones and some banner work here, kind of figuring it out. Here's a rough sketch of the cover. So there it is. Steve, I was obviously very influenced by Maxfield Parrish. It's very evident in this thing. Here's some more sketches from Giant Bones. These were all spot drawings. So I would have been still working on Planescape, though not as much, and not as much Dungeons and Dragons. This was also for Giant Bones, Ange. All these would have been finished.
Oh, it was in the background on the cover, wasn't it?
It is in the background on the cover. I don't think you see much of it. And I could run away and go grab the painting, but I'm not going to stop. I want to, because we got a lot of sketchbook to get through. So if anybody sees anything and they're like, stop! This was an alternate cover idea for Giant Bones. The art directors always like to see alternate ideas. So here's a giant holding the narrator, I believe. And Peter described the giants. I want to say they were covered in trees and shrubs and things like that, so you can see me doing that. And then just a little D&D goblin going on right there, Ange. Now, these oatmeal sketchbooks were readily available at Pearl Paint, which was down off of Canal Street, down in downtown New York City. At the time, Pearl Paint sadly is gone, but I'm sure these oatmeal sketchbooks are still available. And they were great, Ange, because you could do varying levels of, I could do a pencil drawing. If I really liked it, I'd put some pen on it. And if I really, really liked it, I'd go in with a white colored pencil and put a little razzmatazz on it there. So here's...
You drew that bird a lot on the right, I remember.
This was my muse. This kind of Victorian crow with ears was kind of like my alter... It's how I saw myself. It's very strange. It came about in art school. I was doing a lot of very personal drawings where I was trying to, at the time, kind of cope with, growing up. And so I would often draw this bird as kind of my metaphor. So I think he's juggling things and I'm watching, but I don't know.
Andy Wright wants to know, has your method of working sketch to final image changed from this process?
I don't work in sketchbooks much anymore. I'll bring a sketchbook for travel, but I don't use these only because they're kind of a pain to scan out of. And this oatmeal paper, as much as I love it, I would hardly never work on this now because also a pain. Oh, someone posted the Giant Bones. Thank you, Kevin. On it. So this is of November of November 19th. I was going to say 2019. November of that year, 1996. And so I had already done quite a few magic cards by this point. So there are earlier magic cards sketched, and I had this thing where I would get a little color copy and tape it in there. So this is why I was excited about this. So this is 1996. This is
Michael Harper said Strathmore still has toned sketchbooks.
That's fantastic. This is early Jimmy Zangwill developmental sketches where the Grimble Grinder was this very Dr. Seussian looking creature. And you can see an early version of Jimmy. The Marsmen are pretty spot on, Ange. This is when it was called the...
Face has changed a little bit.
Yep. This was when it was called The Incredibly True Unbelievable Adventures of Jimmy Zangwill. Just a short, quick title. Easy. Rolls right off the tongue. This says...
It's like, oh, kids, let me read through the title. Okay, time for bed.
So this is 3010. That makes no sense. But this is 3... This is 1027. I just want to see what year it is. This is October 27, 1996. This must be... I must have done it backwards. I must have thought I was British for a moment, Ange. So this is...
I could see that.
Yes, 10/30, 1996. It threw me off for a minute. Some more Magic the Gathering sketches. You are going to see a lot of Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland. I am obsessed and was obsessed with both of these books. And they fueled a lot of the books that I created. So you're going to see a lot of these doodles in the side because I am yet to be published. I am 4 years away from being a published children's book illustrator. So there's going to...
Is that Mischievous Poltergeist?
This is Mischievous Poltergeist. So Sissay being accosted by a harmless ghost. And then you can see some more details of the ghost. And Sissay and I end up posing for what was called the Philanthropist, but I think it was changed to like bag of something. I don't even remember. This was probably for the Duelist. This looks like Duelist Magazine, which was a Magic the Gathering magazine that I believe might have even been published by Wizards of the Coast. And occasionally, yes, they would tap Magic artists to do spot art in the magazine itself. So this was a set of spot art pieces that I would have done for the magazine. So often I think what I would do is... I don't know if I would have scanned these or just Xerox them and then probably fax them at that point. There's probably stuff was still being faxed to the art director. Looks like another sketch from Peter Beagles because it's Innkeeper's Song. No, I know what happens, and you're going to see this play out in the sketchbook. It's interesting, the threads. After I handed in all the artwork for Giant Bones, the publisher, which was Rock at the time, then discussed the possibility of me repackaging all of Peter Beagle's backlist. So here I am daydreaming about the Innkeeper Song, which was another one of Peter's books. And I think there's some Last Unicorn sketches in here as well. Now we're down in Florida because we're at my mom's house, and she had purchased these watercolor pencils. So I'm playing around with mom's watercolor pencils here and drew some apples from life.
Kevin Sylvester said, did you have the contract for Jimmy Zangwill yet, or were you developing it to pitch it?
I think I'm developing it on the encouragement of Kevin Lewis, who would become my editor. I think that's what's going on at this point. This was a sketch for Cricket Magazine, but it never saw the light of day. I remember this. Here's sketches for what would become Fire Imp, I think, which is a magic card, and there's the finished card, and there's the little thumbnail sketch. Another drawing of the imp, very Freudian. The Merfolk Trader. This was a very long piece. I remember I did a very long horizontal painting. I remember because I sketched this out in December of 1996, and I just loved I loved every bit of it, and I went to crop in what would be the scene and just wanted to paint the whole thing. So I think that's the whole painting. There may have even been a little more to it.
Was that just white colored pencil, or it was a special different type of pencil you were using to knock the whites out?
This is white colored pencil. Mm-hmm. Yep. I think there may be some paint pen in here, but not often. So this is There Was a Crooked Man. This is the Mother Goose rhyme. So I think I had the misunderstanding that quite possibly if I were to illustrate a classic text like Mother Goose, that maybe I could get work. And of course, it doesn't really work that way. They would never really get, they being publishers, wouldn't really take a chance on an unknown artist doing a classic tale like Mother Goose. It would be the other way around, I think. This, of course, is inspired by the famous silent movie Trip to the Moon by, I can't think of the guy's name. You guys know who the director is, but you can see it starting to develop Mr. Moon from Jimmy Zangwill. That's all what this becomes, is Mr. Moon from Jimmy Zangwill. That's December.
You mean that's not just from the Smashing Pumpkins video?
Yeah, Smashing Pumpkin video is riffing on George Mallet. George Mallet's Trip to the Moon. This was another Spider magazine. This never happened. And I remember this because, here's why. I remember this now. We're going to go back. It was some poem about a beetle, and then the beetle getting stepped on. So if you look at this sketch really close, you can see the beetle's here, and there's a shadow of a foot, right? And I kind of did the cartoon thing where he's got his umbrella, like, oh, this is going to hurt. And then they didn't like that. The art director was like, no, I don't want to put that much emphasis on the beetle. And by the way, how much proto Spider and the Fly is going on there? Like, this is years before Spider and the Fly, and yet you can see the polka dot tie, the kind of Victorian. So then I gave them this sketch, which was the beetle is
kids taking joy in
tiny, and the kids are just taking joy in crushing this beetle. And they were like, maybe not you for this one. So I don't think I ended up ever illustrating. I did not get that gig for that one. This was a cover for a French or an Italian gaming magazine. That painting ended up getting made. More Jimmy Zangwill, and then here we have some Wizard of Oz sketches. So, and here we are at the Grand Canyon, Ange. This was drawn at the Grand Canyon.
That was our favorite.
December 29th, so like just a couple of days before New Year's.
Little cheapy kind of
diner
that we would go to that had the best beef barley soup.
Yes, you love their barley soup.
I love their beef barley soup.
So here I am at the diner drawing Wizard of Oz and dreaming of making kids' books. Very early cover idea for Jimmy Zangwill. Here we go, Peter, Pumpkin Eater. So again, just more dreaming of kids' books.
Looking at this, like that ends up on the heads of the Marsmen in Jimmy Zangwill.
And that's kind of one of the reasons why I was kind of excited to show the sketchbook, is because you see that things are just there. It's a stream of consciousness, and you're kind of, when you take them out of context now, it's interesting. But when you see the kind of what was going on at the time, it all kind of makes sense. This is more stuff for Duelist. So it was building a better deck. So I kind of thought it'd be funny to have him building a house of cards out of magic cards, but also using glue. This was a young adult novel that I was asked to sketch for the cover, and I did not get that gig either. Silk. I don't know if Silk exists or if it ever happened. I want to say she was a drug addict, which is why the spoon.
Ooh.
Yeah, so like a gothy. I mean, look, she's got a baby doll dress.
Little devil horns, angel wings.
Yeah. So that was done in January of 1997. So this is Peter Beagle, then just me writing. You're going to see a lot of that too. I just write stuff. Now this I thought was really cool.
What?
I don't know if anyone can tell, but this is the beginning of a very big story for me. And it involves this robot called Number 6 and these weird giant bird things that are obviously very predatory. And here we have some ruins and some weird aliens. So maybe you guys might know what this book, all this stuff becomes. The DNA for something. So it's all this weird aliens. And this one's called Darnia Minorath, but he was a traveler. That's what I do. He was prone to sucking on ferritau balls, an addicting stimulant. So I always thought there was almost like a tobacco kind of thing that he's... So maybe you guys know...
Brennan Power nailed it.
Did he?
Katie Nunchucks.
This is the beginning, one of the beginning moments for Search of WondLa. So here's what would become the Munt Runners here in the second book. They're a very Rovender Kit-looking character here with the rabbity ears and kind of the scrawny. And he's even got a backpack. And there's what would become Zin. What happened to it all? It, as everything we know, changed and no longer exists. Were they like us? Yes and no. Do they know of our existence? I doubt it. However, it is possible we could tell them. How? Via a time bubble. We'll send your journal back to them. The original WondLa was going to be a book sent back, where Spiderwick was a story from the past, the Arthur Spiderwick's Field Guide that we had published now and brought forward into the future into modern times. WondLa was originally going to be the same type of journal, but sent backwards in time to the modern day. You like that? Some more WondLa, more Maxfield Parrish, more WondLa. Early Otto. He was Otis here, but he's very clearly what would become Otto, the air whales or the sand snipers, these giant worms. There's Rovender. He was Ruthra, which was Arthur backwards. Ruthra Makkar, which is Arthur Rackham backwards. So there was an early row vendor. This is more WondLa. More WondLa. These would have kind of become the Halcyonis. So just really interesting to go back and see a lot of this stuff. And then look, then we slip right into Magic the Gathering. So if you're a fan of Magic the Gathering, this is Horned Turtle, and which I believe is a card that's been reprinted quite a few times. And originally the Horned Turtle had a person there, so you get a sense of scale. So now you know how big that Horned Turtle really is. And there's some reference for the turtle. Clearly I had some snapping turtle reference. Look, it was much smaller here because it's got a frog on his back.
This that's not menacing enough.
Yes. Here's what would become Bayou Dragonfly. I think they didn't want it as anthropomorphic, which we all now know what that word is. See episode 23. Little less face, a little more bug. Here's what would become Wall of Diffusion, I believe it's called.
Originally
called Wall of Crystal. Maybe it's called Wall of Crystal. This is a very early Verdant Force sketch, which you'll see that develop. Here's another Verdant Force sketch right here. Shimmering Wings. A lot of the names changed, and they never stayed that name. They were always working titles, but whatever that card is this Angelic something maybe? But she doesn't have angel wings. I don't know what that one is.
Oh, yeah, what was she called?
Something Protector, I want to say. Yeah. Here's one that...
Protector?
This one got cut. The Spring Showers. During spring showers, the muck toads begin their mating songs, which can be heard for miles. So these are just little frogs that I designed. Little hammerhead frogs. Yes, God, I got to use those.
These are printouts that Tony would have printed out and then just put it inside.
Yeah, they're just laser copies that are kind of taped in, which I regret. Although for today's purposes are good. You can kind of see what they become.
Angelic Protector, Melissa.
Yes. So there you go. There's the final sketch for Verdant Force. So you can see I would include notes, a swamp creature thing, very ominous, very powerful. It's dusk out, foggy, swamp-like area, gnarled tree with spore shrooms in the foreground, maybe a few dragonflies, and then there you go. I think I ended up making it more dawn than dusk. There's the dragonfly again. You can see I've gotten revisions on it. More revisions. It's actually an antlion now that I look at it. It's an adult antlion, which Joey B would, if he's listening, would also say. And then there's the final painting for that. This is the beginning of another magic card, and I cannot remember the name of it, but it involves that magic cabinet.
Oh, I was going to say some kind of cabinet.
Some kind of magic cabinet, but I don't remember the name of it. Back to WondLa. So this is also a very maybe Arius, because she's got a weird time turner kind of thing going on.
That looks like a tiny Mars man.
Yeah,
like
these same shapes.
You used stars and...
There's moons and
shapes that you use.
She also is very Halcyonis. I mean, they're not quite as grotesque as this, but you can see it. There it is. Hannah's Guardship. So there's that sketch, and then there's that card with the cabinet. And Jimmy Zangwell's right there. So you can see it all kind of living in this world. Yeah. This is an Umber Hulk. This looks like it was a possible dungeon cover that never happened in March of 1998, which would have been a pretty fun cover to paint. So you can see the wizard or the cleric is lighting up the scene, which would have been cool to have his like glowing eyes. And not a bad Umber Hulk. Very Gartham or whatever from Dark Crystal.
One of the things I want to point out about this is when you're thinking about this, this is just the raw creativity. This is just you getting ideas down. Mm-hmm. You're not thinking about judging the work for publication at this point. You're just tapping all of your own creativity. I do think that there's something really freeing about having that in a sketchbook, that you can just have this book with you at any time, open a page, and then get ideas down.
Yeah.
And it's for yourself.
Yes. Yeah, it's really for myself. It's not... That's why when you go to a convention or whatever and you buy a sketchbook by someone, myself included, it's very curated usually. It's never the real sketchbook, because who wants to print this page? You know what I mean? Here's Alice in Wonderland, very early. Angela, I think I dreamed this. I remember.
Is that the one that becomes that big painting thing?
No, it never does. No, I know what you're thinking, the underground painting. No. But I remember dreaming it. It was weird. I remember this.
She looked similar. She had the wings.
This is me describing DeCracy, the artist DeCracy, to someone. How brilliant he was, or is. Jimmy Zangwow, and we bought sea monkeys. I remember when in New York, you and I had sea monkeys, and I must have gotten excited and drawn them. But holy cow, it's like Grimble Grinder. It's almost the Grimble Grinder.
Again, you have the lines.
The stripes.
Very Tim Burton-y.
Yes.
But also repeating the stripes on Jimmy.
Yep. So this is May of 1997. Jimmy Zangwow is not in his space t-shirt yet. He's still in more kind of pajamas. More Magic the Gathering. Back to work. More Magic the Gathering cards. Don't bother contacting Andrew Robinson at that address. He does not live there anymore. So this one's Fighting Drake. That's a nice little sketch. And then you can see all these variations of the dragon head, just trying to figure out what kind of dragon it is.
And Twitch.
And Twitch, which was based after Kramer. So that's what was meant to be like a Michael Richards.
He like walks in the door and that's
He's doing his, hey, Jerry. So it kind of did very Twitch.
Alfonso's gonna subtly cosplay Jimmy Zangwow when he meets us.
Oh, can you subtly do that?
But then is it just a striped shirt? Will people just think you're Where's Waldo?
Here's more Grimble Grinders. This is before. You're going to see the Grimble Grinder breakthrough happen. Look at that. It's happening right in front of your eyes. So there's Jimmy Zangwow. It's getting much closer now to the final book.
The goggles.
Getting some acting there. Jimmy begrudgingly handing over moon pies. Jimmy wistfully eating moon pies. Some scenes.
The Grimble Grinder there
is terrifying.
He's twisted.
Yeah, he's very twisted.
Very pug influence, too.
Yeah, you can see Goblin's influence on all this. More Grimble Grinder. Now figuring, see, now I've got something and I'm chasing it. I'm just chasing this shape. He's no longer serpentine. And there's one last gasp of him being serpentine. And instead going, he's all stomach. So let's just see what happens.
He wants to eat all the time.
Yep.
So this is his shape and not that one.
That was like one of my favorite little drawings. I loved that drawing. That little sketch.
Emil Alpsari said Gazonk. This is actually prior to Gazonk.
There may be some Gazonk here. Now, Ted and Jimmy were all meant to take place way back when. And the third book was supposed to be this book, Sam Stevens and her pet rhino, Pete. And it was about a little girl living in, like, the Depression, New York. I was obsessed with New York during that time. And I wanted her to get a pet rhinoceros. And I worked on this book for a while with Kevin, but we never quite figured it out, and it never saw the light of day. This was this is like Jimmy Zangwow meets WondLa, just some weird daydreamy thing. Just a kid, just a little kid adventurer. Little Star Wars fun for you. This back to WondLa, so these become air whales, but here they're land whales. Very Star Wars Dagobah looking creature there for you. More now, it's just aliens. I think WondLa was on my mind. A lot of that and let's see, 1998 Star Wars. Yeah, I wonder if Star Wars was back out.
If you're drawn Star Wars,
I obviously had Star Wars on my mind. I don't know. 1998? Is that what I said it is?
That's a cool landscape there. I like that.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
It's kind of WondLa, but also very Star Wars too.
I like it, but it's very, very organic.
Yes. So this, if anyone's a fan of White Wolf, these are sketches for what would become a cover to one of their changeling books called Land of 8 Million Dreams. So there's some of the figure sketches. There was a lot of life drawing going on at this point. So you can see I was quite confident in drawing the figure then. Yeah, there's the sketch for it. Sketch for Land of 8 Million Dreams. This is July of 1997. That's probably the sketch that was sent in.
This is very Michael Parks.
Big time. Michael Parks with a Gustav Klimt dress.
Yeah, but the kind of human-faced cats. Was
very Michael Parks. Weird Fishy Man. I think this is just aliens. So here I'm using a little bit of my acrylic gouache. And this is some nice penmanship going on. And it's funny, my usual...
Paint, or what do
yeah, there's a little gouache on there. This is my usual sketch, very sketchy, very fast. This is much more controlled. This is more like a finished. I'm going to draw something finished. So it's kind of interesting.
Mirror Mask out by then.
Ooh, I don't know. Maybe. That's a good question. That's right around the same time, too, and we would have seen that. There's a Dungeons & Dragons Hobgoblin and a Dungeons & Dragons Troll. Here's some more Magic the Gathering. This is Elven something. I don't remember what they were. Elven Raiders, maybe? Maybe it's the Sky Shroud Troopers, but here's the sketch for that. And I'm figuring out their shield design. And then here's kind of little head studies of the individual elves. By this time, Magic the Gathering had style guides. So this is not my design. This is me trying to draw somebody else's design, which frankly I was not a fan of. It was very, especially if what came natural to one artist didn't come as natural to another. And that's how I felt with this. This is a sketch for a cover for Spider Magazine. This little boy is fiddling and this giant is dancing.
You got that job.
We have that.
I remember.
Yeah, this one we have. We have the original for this. And this is also for Cricket Magazine. It's like the story of a fable about the menorah. So he uses the rake as a menorah. This is all sketches of Mommy Fortuna from The Last Unicorn. There was the possibility that I was going to illustrate The Last Unicorn, so I got super excited about that. And, of course, it didn't happen. So Land of 8 Million Dreams, this is another sketch. I think I thought about having it being a dark-skinned model. I often tried to use a variety of ethnicities when I would do these covers, because we ended up using Maho for it. So she was Japanese for the cover.
Definitely influenced by, you know, us moving to New York City.
Yeah, living in the city, and that everybody was from all over the world.
Coming from Florida and moving to New York City in such a diverse landscape.
Yeah.
And I remember, thinking about that, and you were like, "This is how I want my art to be. I want to reflect this world." Yeah.
More Dungeons & Dragons. There's a really nice orc. I really like that guy. I almost want to redraw him. He's very Jim Henson-y.
He is good.
He's kind of Jim Henson Muppety. You could see that animatronic mouth moving.
Yeah.
I know exactly what that stain is. That is tomato sauce from you, Ange. I still remember it to this day. This video will serve one day as a memory bank for me when I've forgotten all this stuff. This is another Changeling piece. This was a promotional poster for the game. So Changeling was a role-playing game released by White Wolf, where you can play various types of fairies. This was the sketch. I like the note that I got from them. More sensual. That's what the note was.
Oh my gosh.
Of course it was. So this elven girl, though, is not attached to that. I'm thinking this becomes a Dragon magazine cover. More WondLa inspired things. This guy ends up being in the poster here. He's going to be one of the characters. And then here's the sketch for Noel Bruch, drawn in September of 1997. So this was,
It was the Mighty. We have all kinds of silly little words.
Yeah, in fact, the Mighty shows up in Gazonk. There is a thing called the Mighty Mighty.
Yeah.
But here, and this design ends up becoming one of the brownies in the Spiderwick field guide. I end up using his design because I really liked it a lot. That kind of weird bat frog-ness is the beginnings of Spiderwick.
That's Spiderwick.
Very
all
Spiderwick.
Day with the nostrils and the bat-like.
And tiny beady eyes. So this is the Scalper. So there were times when you could do a Magic the Gathering card and just draw whatever you wanted. And I think for this one, it was just this brooch. Or brooch. Brooch? Brooch?
It was B-R-O-O-C-H.
Brooch?
That's how it was spelled on the card.
Which I guess is some type of necklace. So here's the little thumbnail of it. And then here's me kind of figuring out what the character is going to look like. So a little bit of Star Wars. A lot of Star Wars when I look at it. A little bit of Tony D.
Even the padded vest.
Very Star Wars.
Vest.
Yes. So here's more sketches for that poster for Changing to promote Changing. At this point, we had the model. We'd already posed and gathered photo reference. So Angie, your friend Candace posed. So we had the photo reference.
Actually, and you show the photo reference for that, I believe, in Realms.
Realms. We found some of the old photos and we showed some. We had a lot of sketches that we wanted to show in Realms. We just didn't have the room. There was so much art that we just couldn't get to it all. But it was one of my things I was really looking forward to, was all this stuff. So you can see all these little thumbnails figuring it out. And now here I'm figuring out the characters. So these are all changed. These are all fairies, assuming different forms. So there was a blue jay with human hands. Those are most likely my hands, trying to figure out the exact posture. There's a little frog goblin. Also, we're getting close to Spiderwick land now. He's got a glowing egg on his head. Don't ask me why. This is back now to the last unicorn. There's the Harpy. There's a very nice sketch of Mommy Fortuna, if I say so myself. That's pretty good for that era for me. I like her a lot. There's the Harpy again, done on October of 1997. These goblins, however, are all Magic the Gathering. I think the style guide had come through for yet another deck, and I'm trying to get my head around drawing these goblins. So here you go, a whole page of Magic the Gathering. I often get asked by collectors if I would sell my Magic the Gathering sketches. These are all Magic cards. And this is the reason why I can't sell my sketches. The majority of them are bound in books like this. So this one was called Soul Damper, but I don't know if that's what the final name of the card was. Goblin Piker, a very Brian Froudy looking labyrinth kind of goblin. Mystic Denial. Goblin Shaman is flabbergasted. That staff doesn't work. It only produces bubbles. And one of my favorite cards, it's Eavesdrop, but I think it's called like I Spy in the final version. That's one of my favorite. I might still have the art for that one. That might be one of the ones on tour. More Magic cards. You ask, I'm giving. Here's Goblin Cavaliers. Again, not my Goblin designs. These are other designers' Goblin designs. Here's a poor goblin getting sucked into
Was that called Adios?
It was not called Adios. I wish it was.
What?
He's just getting sucked into a portal. Yes, I think there's a goblin riding one of these giant rams. You know, it's funny. Tom Engelberger and I did, on our Monster Manual Jam, we drew rams, and I said, I don't think I've ever drawn one, and there it is. So you remember, if you're a fan of Sin City, and too bad Celine's not watching, but there's a sketch of Marv.
Oh, we should take a picture of that and
drawn
send that to Frank Miller.
Here's, again, Dungeons and Dragons, but you can see the beginning of Spiderwick happening where, like, what if the goblins and the kobolds are wearing household items?
Oh my gosh, Alfonso got in trouble at school for drawing goblins, and his teacher thought he was disturbed.
I got a few of those, too. Here's a very Star Wars Ron Cobb-inspired alien.
Ram Giant.
Yeah, Ram, Giant. Wow, an idea for a story that never happened called The Night Babies, because what kid wants to hear a story about night? Are they vampires? But they were these babies that rode around on creatures at night, and they kind of lit the stars and woke up the moon, and it was kind of a fun idea, but it never happened. And then this little boy gets, basically tiny me, gets taken with the Night Babies and is stressed out. He's Timothy B. Tupman.
Everything, it was very dreamlike.
Very dreamlike. This is the beginning of a Dragon magazine cover. Girl with Dragon. I think that was the art note I had. Draw a girl with a dragon. So you'll see lots of sketches. So very posed girl. This is obviously that's a much more Maxfield Parrish girl. Elf with this dragon.
I like that dragon.
This ends up becoming the pseudo dragon in a later issue of Dragon magazine.
I was like, I know that dragon.
You can see this sketch kind of go on and on. You can see here she's talking to the dragon. There's a big Parrish castle.
She's like an early Khaleesi.
She
Early
is.
mother of dragon.
There's another one. She's reading to the dragon, and this was the idea here was she was in this like in a little glen.
That's cool. I like that.
And every evening at dusk, the elven princess would head to read to the protector of the wood, for his eyes were old, and he could no longer focus on the tiny words that they used in their books anymore. In some ways, it's almost proto-Kenny and the Dragon, right? The idea of reading to a dragon. It becomes ultimately this sketch where she's conjuring a dragon, and this will becomes a cover to Dragon. Yep, the Dragon Summoner. Another neat little character. She just means nothing. Here's Grimble Grinder. Back to the Grimble Grinder. And I think at this point, Jimmy Zengwow is underway. This Grimble Grinder, he looks almost lifelike, right, Ange? Like there's volume and shade to him. And that's because he was drawn from life, except I don't know where the model of him is now. I thought I was going to be able to grab... Oh, I got this at least. So, following a cue... I don't know who it was from. Maybe Adam Rex might have been the one that told me about this. But we would sculpt faces out of Sculpey, you know, like cheap Disney animators to kind of have these little maquettes to draw from. And there was a Grimble Grinder maquette that I made. But here's the one for the Marsmen that I used when I drew the Marsmen.
Susie Ashworth said, it's like Bing Bong.
Oh, funny you should say that.
Yes, it is like Bing Bong,
Yes,
isn't it?
it's so much like Bing Bong. That's all I'm going to say about that. Some life drawings. So normally I had dedicated life drawing sketchbooks, but occasionally I would forget my sketchbook and thankfully would have my regular sketchbook in my satchel, because it would have been a satchel at the time. So here's lots of drawings from life. And now back to our dragons. So there was one point where maybe the dragon summoner was summoning a small dragon. I had this whole thing of like she's locked to the land. And
But very much like the Giant Bones pose.
I mean, I was looking at so much Maxfield Parrish, and this was his jam, was sunsets, profile, this kind of pose is very Maxfield Parrish. Also very Michael Parks.
Alfonso said, is there some drama there with Bing Bong?
Yeah, there's drama there. There's a close-up of the dragon that she summons, which actually not too bad. There's a early Jimmy Zangwow. Now, what happened was I had not drawn a lot of children. I remember this. I wouldn't do this today, but I had to do it back then. So we hired a model to pose for reference for all the illustrations for Jimmy Zangwow. I have a book. But I worked with a modeling agency, which was usually what you did for fantasy illustrated. A lot of fantasy artists would work with modeling agencies, and you could hire a model to come out, and either you could take the photos or you could hire a photographer to take photo reference. And it usually wasn't too bad, especially if you were getting paid, you know, a few $1,000s to do a cover. You would dedicate $300 to $500 to your model to get a good model. So I applied that same reasoning here to Jimmy Zangwow. It was a good thing and a bad thing. It was good because I had not drawn a lot of children, and their anatomy and proportions are very different than adults. It was a bad thing because I ended up really not straying far from the photographs, and I leaned on the photo reference too much, and I feel like the end result was a kind of a stiff-looking posed kid. But, you know, I had to start somewhere. Anyway, this would have been a drawing. I think what happens is they sent potential models via like a little card. You get like a postcard with the photo of them, and on the back would have their names and age and stuff. And so I think I did little drawings of Jimmy Zangwow based on these model cards. It's another Wizard of Oz sketch. So yes, these are different.
Oh, that kid was awesome. I remember his photo.
Yeah. So these are different kids.
Ford models, I think.
We used Ford models.
And we had a friend who was a photographer. She photographed a lot of the bands that I did makeup for.
Yes.
And so the kid came to the studio with his mom, and it was kind of crazy because you're telling him how to pose. And,
yeah.
You know, he had to be in his like homemade junk jumbly jalopy, and he's in a cardboard
box. And I still have some of the props from the costume here. They're still here, Ange, after all these years. So here's the scarf and the goggles that the kid wore. They're hanging on the hat rack in the studio that the original model wore for Jimmy Zangwow. So some little Jimmy Zangwow.
I have to show that in like an art of book.
One day.
One day. The big culmination of the whole career book.
Yes. But here's the thing I want to point out. This is drawn from a photo. That's drawn out of my head, and that drawing is so much more better to me. I feel like it's got so much more life to it. This has personality, but
that kid had personality.
Yeah, the kid had a lot of personality.
It's kind of weird because you're like shopping for your model. You're like, yeah, that's Jimmy Zangwow.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, that kid's not available.
Pick someone else. This is a study of the Dragon Summoner. You would have posed for this, so this is probably based off a pose by you. You have incredibly large hands here.
Yes, I
and
do.
I've purposely tried to make it not look like you. I remember that was conscious because I think at the time everything was looking like you. Although now in retrospect, I would just make them all look like you. They're on in February of 1998, and here's more magic cards. So this is some Elven Elder and a spell book called Baron's Codex. And more Magic the Gathering cards. So this is a Paladin Sarah Zealot done in March of 1998. An Endless Worm. And there's the note from them, add more tail. Looks like that dungeon or dragon cover came close to coming back, because here they are with the Umber Hulk again, but for some reason it just never materialized. So here's some great stuff. So here's the Birth of Gazonk, my book, G is for One Gazonk. So this was just being silly and drawing. And a huge and heavy hoofle. So after Jimmy Zengwa was done, I pitched this book to my editor, and he says, we're not doing an alphabet book. They're very hard to sell. But tell me a story about this thing. This is the very first drawing of what would become Ted.
Do you still use friends for models like you did with Holly and Ange for the pinup series?
I think, yes, we have. It's been a little while, though. Soph's posed for stuff. You've occasionally posed for stuff. We had Lori pose. We did a whole photo shoot and had Lori come.
She was Tinsel in the Broken Ornament.
She was a Broadway dancer, so she could not only create and hold terrific poses, she has the excitable energy that Tinsel had. Like, we couldn't take enough photos. She couldn't stand still. She was terrific. And of course,
and Delaney
came and posed as Eva 9 for the Hero. No, not Hero. The Battle for WondLa cover. And Madison, Heidi Stempel's daughter, has posed for a number of things, including the Spiderwick Mermaid. This was for a card game that Wizards produced called Earthquake. So these are the sketches for that.
Christopher Lee Clark said, let me know if you need a weird bearded man.
Good to know.
We live in Western Massachusetts.
We're surrounded by weird bearded... Oh, and at the very end, yes, this is what you think it is. I was at San Diego Comic-Con signing for Magic the Gathering in 1997. So very different than the Comic-Con many of you may know now. And as I was finishing my signing, a couple of the fans said, John Jerome Mobius is here. He's signing across the aisle from you. And I lost my mind. Mobius, I think you can see it through all these sketches. There was a lot of inspiration from Jean Jerome Mobius. I always thought he was a genius. So I finished my signing, got the back of line, and I had nothing. I had no comics. I had nothing to get signed. So I went up to him, and I had one question, Ange. And my question was, I know you're inspired by Tintin. I knew that was Hergé was a huge inspiration to it, but I wanted to know who else's inspirations were. So he kind of looks at me, and he goes, are you an artist? That's my French, by the way. That was French for "Are you an artist?"
Very much so.
Yes.
I was convinced.
And I said yes, and he kind of nods at my sketchbook. He takes this sketchbook, and he pages through it. He takes his pen, or my pen, and says, I'm inspired by everyone and everything, and now I am inspired by you. And drew this in 30 seconds and said this was him looking at my sketchbook. And that's just amazing. Just to see that now. This person that was a total genius hero to me. A person I never thought I'd get to meet. So I was very touched. And I forgot that was in the sketchbook, to be honest with you. What's on the back? Oh, look at that. I'm on one side, and Mobius is on the other. That's incredible. Totally forgot that was there. Oh, and there's Ralph Bakshi's phone number. Okay, so I've got two others. I know we're on limited time. I don't want to run this out, but we got so many people watching, Angela. I'm willing to go a little longer if you guys are, but I don't think we can do two more. I pulled 3 sketchbooks total, thinking we were going to fly through them, but I didn't know it would be this much fun. So I'll let you guys... this is my fantastical sketchbook from 2003. This has a lot from Spiderwick's Field Guide. This one has a lot of Kenny and the Dragon and also early WondLa. So I don't know if there's...
You can do a snapshot from each.
Yeah? What do you think, Ange? Which one? What do you think they'd like to see? So we're going to jump forward in time a little bit on these. You know, it's set for this size. I'm thinking maybe... I'm into Let's go do this one. All right, so this is started in August of 2004. Spiderwick was well underway. These are preliminary sketches for the Field Guide. So the 5 Spiderwick books were done, and I'm now preparing to do artwork for Arthur Spiderwick's Field Guide starting in August. And I want to say we may be in Florida. I'm not sure, but you're going to see some neat stuff here. So there's some sprites, sprite designs, and a lot of this stuff makes it to the final book. Here's sketches for the Kelpie.
Tom wants to see the Michael Jackson album cover? I'm not sure.
From high school, Tom, that's in like storage. There's the finished sketch for the Kelpie. So then this would have been scanned, and then this would have been used for the book dummy and the basis for the actual painting. So kudos goes
tight, man.
Yeah, I had a lot to prove on this book. I really did. I mean, the sketches here are definitely.
I mean, that is that final piece.
Yeah, it's very, very close. And I felt what's crazy here to me, Ange, is there's like no development. There may have been doodles on the side, or I may have had doodles, but what strikes me is that my confidence and necessity, I'm just drawing straight in. This was an unused idea for the Spiderwick Field Guide, that if you looked at the Kelpie head on, it looked like an old man fishing. Do you guys see that? So it's kind of this weird double face, like there's markings on its forehead.
An illusion.
Yeah, that would create this illusion, and it was just too weird, so we ended up not doing it. An early sketch of the Nixie. No fingernails. Arthur gave her an old record player to pose. Oh, wow, I wonder if that made it in the field guide. That's kind of an interesting idea that he gave her an old record player for her. That's the other thing. My brain was on fire, like lightning, like so many ideas as I'm drawing these. The stories would come in.
Is this inspiring for you to look at it? Like when you see this, like what is this like? Are you like, oh man, I want to just make art right now, or what's it like?
It's my brain. I think I'm worse than I am. So I look back at this stuff. That's this is 2004, so we're 16 years ago, and I'm like, oh, it's not bad. There's some decent drawing in there. I mean. If you asked me, do you have a lot of sketches from the Spiderwick Field Guide? Yeah, I guess I got a few, and they're probably not that great. You know what I mean? So to go back and see these, and I haven't flipped through this sketchbook in a long time.
Posed for that.
That's Joe DeLude, I think,
Joe
posed. Our friend Joe posed for that. There's the sketch for the sea serpent, and then some of the mermaids things. That's a cool little sea urchin thing. I never did anything with that. So the notebook for fantastical observations was already being talked about, so there's a rough sketch for that. Dwarven rings. Tiny
Those were all
mechanical.
The dwarven things.
Yeah, the tiny mechanical cave cricket.
The little iron cricket. Yeah.
There you go. There's the sketch for the sea serpent.
I love that because there's the diver hidden inside.
See the divers in his stomach, which made it to the final. And some of the sea serpent teeth, which were based off of shark teeth. Early sketches of the giant.
June Gallagher just keeps hitting the love button.
Oh, thank you. Northern hill giant or mountain giant. We had the note, do not wake a sleeping giant, that Arthur puts in there, but it actually turns out that came from World War II. So Arthur would have made the field guide before then. So we weren't able to use that quote. There's the sketch for the bull goblin done in August of 2004.
Same thing. Look at that drawing.
All the notes.
That is just tight.
Yeah. This is the red cap. I think there was going to be a red cap's plate in the book, and I never got around to it. We ran out of time and on a lot of these. There were a lot of plates that didn't make it in the field guide. I'm hoping when we hit the 20-year mark, I might be able to expand upon it. So there would be a lot of this. So here's the hobgoblin plate, and then the head would have been drawn separate, and then to that level, and then added on in Photoshop. That happened a lot. There's the knocker. His fingers.
He's cool.
Pretty close to the final. That was the dragon plate, but we ended up doing a more natural history type pose for him. So that's August, and then some of the things made from dragons.
Maybe we'll do a special edition where you can add some additional plates or something.
Yeah. There's the phoenix.
I love that piece.
Shown at actual size. A griffin's claw. I don't think that ever made it in. Phoenix feather. This is the wyvern. So originally it was in flight. And you can see just trying to figure out the head. That kind of bird-like.
Sock puppet.
bird-like lizard head, and then there's the final sketch for the long-tailed wyvern. You had gotten me a really terrific book on reptiles, Ange. It was like a beautifully photographed book. Look, remember we talked about the wings yesterday for Graham, and there you can see the thumb. And then the other thing I played around with was that he almost had like little hooks on the knuckle so that he can almost crawl with them. Yeah, then this is where the painting for the European worm basically ends up going, this kind of wistful.
Jill Suzanne Shipman said, any words of wisdom for our own sketchbooks?
Do what just keep filling it up, and then I'm looking at life. This North American griffin was inspired by a type of vulture in Africa. Excuse me. I can't remember the name of the vulture. It'll come to me. But I wanted something that wasn't so hawk-like or eagle-like. So here I'm drawing this vulture. Here's the will-o-wisps.
Hey, that hangs in our bathroom.
The original will-o-wisps. Inspired by.
You used glow-in-the-dark paint for that.
I did use glow-in-the-dark paint. Oh, that's the Banshee's doll from when she was a child. Some of the leaf studies, most likely drawn from real life. Arthur Spiderwick's supplies. Seeing Stone.
Like, here's the things you need.
So then we had a Spiderwick meeting, apparently in August. And I had lots to do. Jeez, I had a lot to do. A lot going on.
T-shirt design, logo, banner.
Got book. That might have been for school library, or for the American Library Association. They wanted me to do a poster. This is for Reading is Fundamental. Reading is Fundamental did a anthology of illustrators drawing a book that meant a lot to them as a child. And so mine was Winnie the Pooh. So here's Pooh giving Eeyore the useful pot. It's one of my favorite stories in Winnie the Pooh, where Piglet means to give him a balloon for his birthday, and Pooh means to give him honey. But Pooh, of course, eats all the honey before he gets to Eeyore, and Piglet falls and pops the balloon. So they give him the piece of balloon and an empty honey pot for his birthday.
Barbara Kohlberg asks, how did you pair up with Holly Black?
Oh, well, we'd known Holly for a while before Spiderwick. Holly had worked for a magazine called D8, which, primarily focused on gaming and gaming culture, named after the 8-sided die. And she interviewed me for my work on Dungeons & Dragons, and she lived in Jersey and came out to Brooklyn.
She edited medical textbooks at the time.
Yeah, it was an editor for medical textbooks, and we became terrific friends. We had a lot in common. And Holly was going to librarian school to become a librarian. Here's some Alice in Wonderland stuff done in September of 2004. This was definitely as Spiderwick is peaking, I'm getting offered to do pretty much anything I want. And doing a classic like Alice in Wonderland was becoming much more reality. So if you ever wondered what I would draw, here's some examples. And so with Holly, she was working, she was doing two things. She was helping me work on the field guide, because the Arthur Spiderwick's field guide was the only book. There was no adventures with the Grace children. It was just this field guide that had kind of been found. And
you knew that it was Arthur Spiderwick, and then it was a field guide.
Yes. And so she was helping me with the folklore mythology. She knew it very well. So she was helping me gather the research and books and things of that nature for the field guide. And look, there's a little Elton John. And meanwhile, she's writing a young adult novel. Now, I'm away on a trip, I want to say, or something happens where I'm not available. And for the weekend, I was in Niagara Falls. Was I really? Was that weekend?
I actually think it was.
I was in Niagara Falls for the...
yes, it was. It was when you went
to go do that convention. And you read Holly's manuscript, and I come home and you're like, I read Holly's book, and it's so good. You have to take it to Simon & Schuster. I didn't read it, so we went to Simon & Schuster like a week or two later, and Angela hands Holly's manuscript to my editor at the time, Kevin Lewis, and says, what do you say to him?
You need to publish this book.
Or you're going to regret it.
Or you're going to regret it.
And it was Tithe. It was her first novel, young adult novel.
Nadine, she had not written Tithe at that point.
She had written it, but no one had published. That's how it got. She never got shopped. It never had an agent. The agent was you. You basically walked it into Simon & Schuster.
And he showed it to other editors.
And they weren't as excited as he was.
That's why I said, you need to publish this or you're going to regret it. When he said, I just can't.
It was dark. It wasn't his... He recognized how good it was, but it wasn't in his lane. It wasn't the types of books he did.
He wasn't doing young adult novels. Not like that. He wasn't doing young
Gothy,
adult fantasy.
Neil Gaiman-y type.
Urban fantasy
hardly existed.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when it came time for Spiderwick, and the book, and that project grew bigger and bigger. It's now becoming a story about the field guide. And then it's like, well, maybe it's not a story about an old man who makes the field guide. Maybe it's modern day kids who find the field guide. As it became to get bigger and bigger, it became very clear that this was not a project I could undertake on my own. And Simon & Schuster thought about getting a ghostwriter, but I would never want that. And so I asked, a list of authors' names were given, and I asked very famous authors that they wanted to go out to, and I asked if Holly, I thought could Holly do it? So Holly and I kind of teamed up and wrote like a chapter or an entire book. I think we wrote a book one that never been published. That's out there. It's a book one that we borrowed a lot of elements from it, but it was basically a story where Jared goes to school and there's a change. His brother's been swapped out with a changeling. And once we did that, they loved it and we were on our way. And so there's the short of it. So there's a bunch of Mad Hatter drawings.
What's a ghostwriter, Penny said?
A ghostwriter is someone who writes a story anonymously and another writer is given credit for their work. It's often used, if I understand it, many times celebrity books. So insert celebrity here, a celebrity that you love. Kim Kardashian's autobiography is likely not written by Kim Kardashian. It's written by a ghostwriter. And there are some famous writers who still do work with ghostwriters.
And sometimes I think people are pairing them more, like they'll say John Grisham and, but some of those huge writers
will work with ghostwriters. Yeah. It's something I've never wanted to do because I know how hard it is to strike out and get a name for yourself. However, I can see the allure because, as Ange can tell you, I have so many stories backlogged that I'll never get them all done.
And honestly, sometimes it happens with artists as well.
Sometimes
when
apprentices
artists get so huge, they will actually train apprentices to draw or paint in their style. And of course, we wouldn't know because they've been trained by the artists themselves. Yeah. And the artists are the ones who are credited for that work.
Yeah. So I think in some cases it could be like the apprentice may just transfer the sketch or do the underpainting and then the artist will come in and finish it. But again, not my jam, not the way I think. This is, speaking of paintings, this was a painting for a holiday card for my manager and her company. So here's a bunch of sketches for that. There's a life drawing of our dearly departed goblin. Back to the Spiderwick Field Guide. Now, these are very finished. These are probably what we published. These were probably sketches that were cleaned up and scanned.
What's so interesting about this is you can see how tight these are because you're really sketching these specifically for reproduction, not exploration.
Yes.
And, all of the pages are not full because your dance card's getting more and more full.
Yes.
So you don't have time to kind of just draw for pleasure as much more when you have deadlines.
There's a lot of wishing and hoping and thinking going on in this sketchbook. And that reality is clearly fulfilled in this sketchbook where I can't even keep up with it.
And look how many years later.
Yeah. Who knew? So these would become spot drawings in the actual Spiderwick Field Guide. We were going to do a calendar of like old Alberta Varga space girls. It never happened. More WondLa. So 2005, this is more WondLa. It's really weird, but you can see the beginnings of things that happen. Here you go, more stray sod designs. There's a guy who's reproduced in the field guide. He's one of the brownies Spiderwick talks to. He was drawn in January of 2005. There's some more of the boggart scissors, pixies, acorns, just drawings that would have kind of decorated and added some interest in the pages. So this looks like the basilisk or the cockatrice. There's a close-up of the basilisk. So you can see, again, lots of photo reference.
Angry chicken.
Very angry chicken with a frilled lizard. Australia's frilled lizard. There's Terrence Fink, who was the changeling that that Arthur Spiderwick encountered in the...
I mean, look at all that negative space.
Well, because it's like... But like, there's a sketch. If you look really close, you can see there was it looked like a 3/4 view at one point, and I didn't like it, so I erased it out. It's a detail. I don't even know if all these made it into the book, but the basilisk's foot, some of the sprites. This is my foreword, What is Real. This is the What is Real essay. And so it's a rough of it, written in March of 2005. The idea of little journal entries, Spiderwick's little journal entries. Such a simple idea, and there's how I conveyed it. There's the gargoyles. That might be an ogre. I'm thinking it is.
Do you seal the sketches in your sketchbook?
Nope. I could smear it right now. I probably am. This might have been for the cover. This might have been a contender for the cover. This kind of sprite with a pencil, because I felt
all of these were.
This was all ideas for the cover of the book. I was not a fan of the Griffin.
That cover. I remember that design.
I was not a fan of the Griffin. Here you go. I dreamed that I made a paper craft of insects. So I wrote that down in April.
Looks like we have someone's birthday today. Happy birthday,
nice.
Don Higgins.
Crazy Mad Hatter idea where his hat is a hat rack. More notes. I think this is another dream. I do a lot of dream writing. I wake up and there's, try to get as much of it down as I can. Then it goes into Gazonk. So Gazonk must have been happening. There's a rough of the cover. And then one of the characters, the Ravenous Rotoid. There's the Mighty.
Mighty Mighty.
With meatballs. No, this was something. More books, please. That must have been some kind of something they were thinking about. Kind of playing with this postmodern, the beginning of that Mary Blair, which now runs rampant through children's books. And here I'm playing with it in 2005. 2005, I was playing with it. So 15 years ago, I was looking at the Provincens and Mary Blair and trying to think about it.
And that looks like It's a Small World hippo.
Yeah, so there's Jimmy Zangwow, and then that's Sam Stevens. Again, I was still thinking of Sam Stevens.
Well, and she's Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, she's got the Mickey Mouse with the pom-poms. Yeah. There's Ted. There's Sam.
She's super cute. I love her.
Sam Stevens, look, yeah. Thimbletack. I was like, what's it like drawing everything in this style? Hog Squeal.
Well, this was... So what year was this?
That's 2005.
This is probably when we bought our first piece of original Mary Blair art.
Yeah, because we're living in Amherst at this point.
Yep.
And we're looking at, And I remember I thought I've been doing it wrong. I remember when I was drawing these, I'm like, I've been doing it wrong the entire time. When in actuality, it became part of everything else I do. It gets folded in. More WondLa. There's the...
That airship's cool.
That's the airships. What if a ship shows up at the end of WondLa contained by a human and takes Evanine home? There you go. That happens. That's not Rovender. That was what ends up becoming Huxley. Yeah, he's setting coordinates for KAN 5A5, Kansas. Another Wizard of Oz reference. Some more Peter Pan. This time... This was a real deal. I was going to be doing Peter Pan because I was also supposed to be doing Peter Pan and Scarlet. So the idea was that I would illustrate Peter Pan and Scarlet, which was the official, I'm making air quotes, sequel to Peter Pan, but done in the wake of Peter and the Star Chasers? The Ridley Pearson book that was hugely successful.
We do that every time. Starcatchers? Peter and the Starcatchers.
So there's my rough idea of maybe what Peter Pan, a Tony D cover would have looked like. And it just never happened. It never happened. Yeah, look, here's how far I got. There's Peter. There's The crocodile, Wendy's house. I was closing in on it. This is another story. There's Sam Stevens. There's the kid, the Gazonk kid. This was, Elton John was coming out with the sequel to Captain Fantastic, Ange, and I had this crazy idea that maybe I could be, because he used a children's book illustrator in the 70s. Could he use a children's book illustrator today? So this was the idea of him looking at his career, kind of a crumbled career. This is the sequel to WondLa. This is WondLa, Spiderwick, the Beyond Spiderwick. This guy kind of morphs into Sandspur, but originally he was a very different character. And then there's Nick and Jules Varga. So you kind of get the idea of what's going on there. There's a Nixie. Oh, you guys want to know if there's some of the expanded. Here, this was what I wanted to do for the 10th anniversary, but it never happened. There's Casey's Pygmy Griffin, the size of Bobcat, and a 3-toed tailless unicorn, although it has a tail, so not quite sure what's going on there. These were some of the expanded ideas, and that's the end. Oh, that's a WondLa thing. That is a monkey. This is all drawn at the Museum of Natural History.
Is this what the junk pot winner gets today?
Yeah, sketchbook.
Just get a sketchbook.
And on that note, Ange, I think it's good. I've enjoyed this trip down memory lane. Maybe we'll do it some other time. But in the meantime,
I know one of the things that you are going to be giving away in this week's junk pot is you have a special surprise in this week's junk pot, actually.
Do I?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, right. Yes.
And I'm pointing to that because Emily Juster is watching today.
Is she still here? Emily
is still here.
Is she still here?
Emily Juster, our good friend and daughter of the incredible, historic, legendary Norton Juster, author of many, many books and the most beloved Phantom Tollbooth.
Phantom Tollbooth, yes. The Dot in the Line, another favorite.
Yes, and his birthday is coming up.
Yes,
next
it is.
Week, his 91st birthday.
So all week we're giving away advance reader copies of my upcoming book to the Junk Pot winner. This is Kenny and the Book of Beasts. I did, unlike usual, where sometimes I'm still working on the final art when it goes to press. It is completely illustrated. It has it's not a great printing, but you get the final fully illustrated book. You'll get to know what happens before anybody else. And I want to point out that it is dedicated to Norton Juster, who I am very fortunate to call my friend, and who I should call, Emily. I owe him a phone call. So that's going to be part of the Junk Pot winner today, Ange. I am feeling so generous. No, I'm not going to give away a sketchbook. However, I have some cool stuff. I started digging around. Now I do have, believe it or not, we have a variety of leftover things that just never got shoved into people's... so you're going to definitely get some... There's still junk to be given away. I still have a couple of Sophia's things to give away. I still have a piece of my scrap that I signed but never gave away. So we have a lot of cool stuff there. Also, I dug into... I want to make this week special, and I'm going to give away rare stuff. Stuff that is really hard to find and or buy.
Amazing.
These coasters were made for the Mint Museum. And as far as I know, the only way you can get these is to just go to the Mint Museum, which is not open. They assure me they're working on an online store. And when they do, then everyone can own these. But in the meantime, one lucky winner today is going to win a set of Never Abandon Imagination fairy coasters. So who is the lucky junk pot winner today, Ange?
Wow.
It's game on. Like we're bringing it. It's definitely...
Okay, I gotta go down this list. Sorry, you can keep chatting for a minute while I look and see. I've glanced in name, and I'm gonna see if this could be our winner, if this person has not been chosen before.
Okay.
Which I don't think they have, but I'm double, quadruple checking, and this person has not been chosen before. I know this is a loyal viewer that has been watching for quite some time now.
Okay.
Yeah.
You ready?
Wait, did this person... Wait, hold on.
Do you want to write it down?
I'm looking to see. Sorry, you keep yapping.
I'll keep yapping. I'm seeing a lot of people saying it's a great junk pot. I've also seen I see a lot of people saying they enjoyed the sketchbook tour. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Hold on. She's writing down a name of who she thinks it should be. And it's so obvious. I don't think this person has won. No.
I don't think this person has won.
This person has not won before, but this person is a winner as far as I'm concerned.
Oh,
this person is a winner. Are you ready, Ange? I'm going to do the drum roll.
I am so ready to give this beloved fan a really sweet, sweet, sweet junk pot.
Here comes.
Today's winner of the Drawn to Fantasy junk pot is Gage Menard.
Gage Menard, a terrific fan, a longtime fan. I am very happy to send this stuff to Gage. He's been a fan for many, many years. And I am kind of shocked we haven't given you the junk pot before, Gage. But enjoy it. There are still a few more days when we're still going to be giving away more insane stuff and lots of advanced copies. Everyone will get an advanced copy this week. Ange, I think that's it. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the sketchbooks. We weren't sure if you guys would be into the sketchbook tour. I actually enjoyed it. I kind of did a quick flip through to make sure everything was fairly family friendly, Ange, but it really took me back. I have not gone back and looked at those sketchbooks in a long, long time. So thank you guys for tuning in today and letting me share my art with you both today and every day. And I hope you guys are all doing well.
Thank you guys so much for spending all of this time with us. I've been spending a lot of time reflecting on our past 2.5 months together. Can you believe it, guys?
All 52 or 53, I can't remember hours. And there's more to come. There's more to come. But thank you guys so much. And we'll see you tomorrow on Drawn to Fantasy.